What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and to another Overwatch League prediction video. I can't believe I'm saying this, but we are already at the week 20 mark. With all the time we've missed because of COVID, plus the 2-week break after the May Melee, it really doesn't feel like that much time has gone by. Lucky for us, the Overwatch League plans to give back to us in full with a lengthy 13-game schedule this week. With that in mind, we've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get right into this thing. So for starters, the hero pool consisting of Brig, Echo, Sombra, and Diva will remain in effect this week thanks to the new bi-weekly hero rotation system recently implemented. So there's really not much else to say other than that the meta is going to be exactly the same as last week pretty much, which means we once again get tons of double shield and maybe some dive here and there. Now let's jump right into the games. So Saturday is going to be quite eventful. We get 7 games in total, so we will be watching games all day and night essentially. To kick off the festivities, the Seoul Dynasty will attempt to get back on the right track against the Guangzhou Charge. Because I've been on a Dynasty kick as of late, I'm going to highlight this one as one of my key matches of the week. Seoul are a very strange team who lives off of momentum. If this year has taught me anything about the Dynasty, it's that they tend to follow a very certain pattern. After a bad loss or two, they usually bounce back in the following week, and they happen to be on a 2-game losing streak if you include the May Melee finals against Shanghai, so they appear to be overdue for a victory now. But the Charge happen to be a team that historically has given them a challenge, so it's not going to be easy. In my opinion, this game absolutely comes down to what Seoul decides to do. If their coaches wise up and stick to the basics again, I give them a real shot of winning. But if they start messing around like they did with New York, then they're probably going to get rolled. What version of Seoul will we get this time? While I can't say anything with confidence, I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say the boys in black and gold have a better outing this week. I'm going to say the coaches know not to be foolish again. This time they consistently play the double shield and go on to beat the Charge 3-1. You could certainly argue this game could be closer than that, but I'm going to follow the pattern and see what happens. Crushing defeats usually lead to convincing victories with this team, so that's the reasoning behind the scoreline. I know it may sound silly, but that's where I'm at with the Dynasty at this point. They're a team that I don't really understand, so I have to guess and basically just see what happens. Moving on to game number 2 in Asia, we've got the London Spitfire versus the Chengdu Hunters. We haven't seen the Hunters play in about 4 weeks, so I'm not too sure what to expect. It's within reason to think they might be on the rise after giving New York a really good fight, but that New York team was not at 100%, so I'm unsure of how much credit to really give them. Either way, the Hunters aren't exactly an easy team to predict. You're better off flipping a coin, really. London, on the other hand, are a bit easier to get a read on, as they tend to perform well against the weaker teams in the league. All their losses tend to be against the good ones, so you have to be feeling pretty good about their chances this time if you're a London fan. And I mean, given their previous encounter, you'd think the Spitfire are coming into this with the advantage, so that's why I have them winning the set in a clean sweep. This game could definitely be closer than this, but I don't trust Chengdu to make it happen. The Hunters actually aren't a bad double shield team, so if they stick to it, they might be able to hold their own. But that's the problem, right? How likely is it that they play standard stuff rather than something weird? They love their Wrecking Ball, and if they play him like I think they will, then it might end up ruining their chances of making this competitive. If Chengdu do play normally though, I'll be looking at the tanks in this match, as I believe the better tank line will give their team the serious advantage. To end the games in Asia for Saturday, the NYXL are going to play the Spark. This one will be a key match for a few different reasons. To start, NYXL and Nene in the starting lineup seems to have given this team well-needed life after limping to the finish during the May Melee. But with their appearance coming against a Seoul team that kind of threw, that wasn't a great test to decide if this lineup change will elevate this team's level of play. A matchup against the Spark will be a better test to help indicate where this New York team currently stands. The interest factor with this matchup does not end there though. The Spark give us a couple of different reasons to be intrigued as well, since they might choose to field Architect now that he's gotten the time to gel together with his new teammates and all. But not only that, but literally just today they recently signed the off-tank player out of Korean contenders QOQ, and I think he might end up making a massive difference at the off-tank position. It's going to be crucial to keep an eye on both of those guys this weekend, but Architect in particular I am very interested in because we've only seen him play for the Shock at this level before, so I'm very curious to see if he can play at the same level or even better. In all likelihood, the answer will be yes, but you never know. Now that there are less superstars around him, he might even put in more work since he'll be dependent on more than before. If Architect ends up playing, the DPS battle is going to be a critical aspect of this game to pay close attention to. Architect and Godspeed versus NYXL or Libero plus Nene. It sounds pretty epic on paper. That's a battle of true superstars. The duo to find more success should play a critical role in deciding a winner. And while I suspect Architect could have a great debut, New York should have the better day overall, so I've got them taking it in 5. Believe it or not, but I like the odds of this being a sneaky close game. I get this feeling that Architect is going to have a similar effect to NYXL joining New York or Punk joining Boston. The competitive edge of the Spark could end up being noticeably improved, but unfortunately, I don't believe one man will be enough in this situation, as the NYXL generally have the better team. It is my hope that QOQ will also make a difference, as the off-tank position has been a mess for the Spark this year, but with him being a recent pickup, I don't know how well he's going to do right at the start. Another thing to note is that Bebe can't really pull off the same feats as Jonek, and Nene, in my opinion, seems to be at a higher level than Godsby. My prediction is that the NYXL fend off Hangzhou, but the Spark find a way to overachieve and give us a great game. Next up on the schedule, we have a godlike way to start off the North American games for the week when the Paris Eternal take on the San Francisco Shock. This is one you definitely have to circle as a must-watch. This is Sparkle's first real challenge at the Overwatch League level. Not only that, but it's a great way for Paris to further prove themselves. They've already been rivals to Philly this year, so if they can hold their own against the Shock, then that will surely solidify them as a top team. Now I have to say, on paper, the Eternal match up alright with the Shock in some places. Take the support line for example. FD God and Fielder I 100% believe in to counter Moth and Violet, and if Hanbin plays well enough, then he might be able to fend off Choi. Everywhere else though, I'm kind of unsure. Nosemight and Benbest have been good this year, but Smurf and Super have simply been better. More than anything though, I have concerns over the DPS. Sparkle may be a young phenom, but Ansan, Striker, and Rascal is a type of combo he's never had to play before. Him, Suit, and Nico really have to pop off to have a chance, and I'm just not sure if they have it in them to overcome this obstacle. Paris have already shown me they're capable of achieving pretty much anything, but this is a challenge I do not think they're ready for. I have the San Francisco Shock taking a hard-fought series in 4 maps. Between the powerful DPS and their well-coordinated tank play, I see them outplaying a team that still has a bit more to learn before they can unleash their full potential. One other indicator that Paris might not be at the Shock's level is the fact that Boston nearly beat them twice. I know Boston are looking a lot better and all, but it's not exactly like their top-tier competition yet, you know? And I figure if they can barely beat Boston, then the Shock might be a bit too challenging. Anyway, game number 5 scheduled for Saturday is the Atlanta Reign versus the Toronto Defiant. Both teams are trending in opposite directions right now. Atlanta can't seem to beat anybody good, and Toronto played a much cleaner game against Vancouver. However, given the Reign's track record, this will probably serve as a nice bounce-back game for them. It's honestly just what they needed, and I mean, they've already smacked the Defiant twice this year, so I don't see why I should expect the result to be any different. The only thing different about this Toronto Defiant team this time around is Numlocked. I will say though, him and Cruz combined gives this team well-needed communication that they were severely lacking before. Combining them with the reserved players on there might be just what the doctor ordered. Vancouver was a mere stepping stone though, that's the thing. It's not much of an achievement, but if they could look good against the Atlanta Reign, then that might be a sign that things have changed for the better. But do I honestly think they have what it takes to pull this off? No, not really. Playing double hit scan theoretically gives them a better chance, but it's not like the Reign are scrubs with this kind of stuff. Baby Bay and Edison could be a lethal duo in this type of meta. Besides that, the only other advantage you could really argue for on Toronto's side is Kareev. On tank and main support, you have to lean more towards Atlanta. Hawk, Gator, and Masa are the stronger trio with better experience. So yeah, it goes without saying that I have the Atlanta Reign winning it 3-0. Struggling or not, beating below-average teams is a theme that has remained consistent with them. In fact, that's where all of their wins have come from this year. While I'm not happy where this team currently stands, I believe in them, and if you're an Atlanta fan, you should too. Moving on to the next game, the LA Gladiators play the Houston Outlaws. Houston find themselves in a strange position. I know they got swept by Philly last week, but they made it closer than the final score implies. Houston put up a decent fight on every map. Linkser and Dante appear to be really coming into their own as a duo. On paper, they are certainly the underdogs, but they may surprise some people. Then on the side of the Gladiators, they have a new recruit to potentially be on the lookout for. Signing the Swedish DPS phenom Kevster is going to drastically improve what they're capable of when playing double hit scan. But the thing is, I have no idea if he's going to play. In all likelihood, he probably won't play, but I'm not going to completely rule it out just because crazier things have happened. Regardless of whether Kevster plays or not, I like the Gladiators here. Their roster is stronger, and after what I saw them pull against the Reign, it's clear that they've got some pocket strats under their sleeves that they could pull out, which proves their coaching is no joke. With that said, I am predicting the Gladiators to win 3-1. I liked what I saw out of Houston last week, so I'm going to give them a map. They're showing progress, so maybe they can win control or something at the start. It's also worth mentioning that Houston gave the Gladiators trouble historically, so that could carry over. The thing is, though, the Gladiators are a bit more unpredictable stylistically, and they hold a clear advantage at the main tank position. The hydration versus OG tank battle is something I definitely recommend paying attention to. Not only is it a good chance for Hydration to show us what he's got, but him going above and beyond expectations could be what the Outlaws need to pull off some sort of upset. Now then, to wrap up Saturday, the Dallas Fuel play the Vancouver Titans. Although they still have their work cut out for them, I am satisfied with the progress Vancouver has made. They seem to have found the DPS duo of the future in the likes of Shockwave and Dalton. The two of them complement each other quite nicely. Now the team just needs to build around them and somebody like KSA, and this team will be winning games in no time. Unfortunately for Vancouver, any momentum they had will likely come to a halt against Dallas, as I see them losing 3-0. This is not the team they need to be running into. Despite their record, the Fuel have been a somewhat promising team this year and have only really been losing to the good teams. And even in their losses, they've shown me fight. Besides their lineup being better in like every way, this Dallas team is more sure of themselves and they're a closer group overall. The Fuel win without too much of a problem. As we transition into Saturday, we start with the Spark and Charge. This is a big rivalry game, so I'm going to consider it a key match. These two almost always put on a good show, so I'm pretty excited. And if the Charge win, they'll officially be ahead by multiple wins in the all-time meetup department, which is obviously big for the bragging rights. And of course, this could be another chance to see Architect, which only adds on to the excitement factor. The thing about this game, though, is I really don't know what I should be expecting from the Spark. They'll really have to adjust their style to have a shot. The Spark feel like a team that needs their tanks to be aggressive. They have to contribute a lot. That's when this Spark team has been the most dangerous throughout the years. But given the meta, that doesn't seem ideal. The Spark could force dive, but that likely would be a repeat of what happened to Seoul when they played New York. The Charge have already abused dive in the past, like that one time against Vancouver, so you already know that they'd happily opt into a strategy of heavy crowd control again if they had to. Hopefully the Spark are smart enough to realize this, but with double shield being better for the Charge, the Spark have to find a way to beat them at their own game. Winning the war of attrition on the front line is crucial for the Spark. How they'll do it is beyond me, but that's what they have to do in my opinion. If he plays, maybe the key lies with an Architect. Maybe he'll be the difference maker. If the Spark tanks give him enough space, then maybe he could help them out, or at least hold off his DPS counterparts. The Spark are at a disadvantage though, so I have to go with the Charge. I'm going to say that the Charge win it in 5 maps given the magic this rivalry usually provides. To follow up this rivalry, we have a less exciting game between the Chengdu Hunters and Shanghai Dragons. Given how dominant the Dragons have been since their initial meetup, things don't look too good if you're a Chengdu fan. The Dragons have what the Hunters have been lacking for their entire existence, and that, my friends, is consistency. I want to believe the Hunters might be getting better, but this is not the right meta. I can't shake off this feeling that they're going to try some weird stuff. Even though they're not bad at double shield, they thrive off the faster pace. They embrace the chaos, but it's kind of hard to be chaotic when you might not even be able to get any value out of Wrecking Ball or Dive in general. And it doesn't help that the Dragons are one of the most disciplined teams in the league. Throwing them off is hard enough on its own, but you've got to keep them pinned down as well. They have the mental fortitude. We've seen them reverse sweep. The Dragons take it 3-0. This appears to be a bad mismatch for the Hunters. Shanghai are at a different level, and it's hard to see a world where Chengdu outplay them. To conclude your Asian region games for Week 20, we get an opening week rematch between the London Spitfire and NYXL. Both of these teams have been on quite a journey since that fateful meeting, and I for one think both have taken strides in their own ways. Will that lead to a more intense matchup this time? Perhaps, but I for one have my doubts. No hate or disrespect towards London, they've been growing so much since their season began. The problem is they are facing a positional mismatch. There are only 3 guys I have confidence in on that London team to step up to the occasion. They are Glister, Sanguinar, and Bernard. Glister and Sanguinar pretty much can compete with anybody, and I expect Bernard to go all out after getting outplayed by Hotball last time. London need to be able to impose their will with the other half of their lineup though, otherwise they're going to get crushed. JMac, Hylie, and Although need to have an out-of-body experience or something because Mono, Jonak, and Hoxel are all far ahead of them. That might be asking for too much though, so the only other option would be to draw up a godlike game plan, and while that is a bit more realistic compared to having their weaker players outplay those on the NYXL, A bunch of what-ifs don't exactly inspire confidence in a team. New York win 3-0. In my opinion, the NYXL's resolve is clear again. The addition of NYXL and the return of Nene has provided a light at the end of the tunnel, and they're not going to let somebody who isn't even at the top close it off. Next up on the schedule is the Philly Fusion versus the Boston Uprising. I personally am really looking forward to it. This is your chance, Boston. Play well against Philly, and you are officially legit. If they could put up a good show 4 times in a row, then even the biggest Boston doubters in the world would have to acknowledge the transformation they've undergone. Win or lose, this is a huge game for them. On paper, this should be a mismatch, but I thought the same about the Gladiators in Paris, and look what happened. The Boston Magic is back, so I'm not going to count them out. However, this will be the greatest challenge yet for them. The Fusion are widely regarded as a top 3 team, so my expectation is Boston won't do as well. But you know what? I'm still going to give them a map. The Fusion take it 3-1. Reborn or not, the Boston DPS still don't exactly hold a candle to somebody like Carpe and Hisu together. We've already seen Jerry get thoroughly outplayed by Carpe before, so I'm expecting a similar result to play out. Filling out the 5 p.m. EST slot this Sunday will be the Battle of Red Hot Spirits when the Valiant play the Mayhem. Since the beginning of May, these two have been consistently trending upward and both happen to be on a nice little win streak if you exclude the May Melee. 2 confident teams on a collision course usually leads to a great game, so I'm going to highlight this as my final key match of the week. I'm pretty interested to see what happens when 2 different philosophies on the meta meet each other. The Valiant looked more towards aggressive tank play with Rein Sigma last week, while Florida stuck to the traditional Orisa Sigma. I wonder if the Valiant will play it again, or if they'll use more Orisa simply because of the higher caliber opponent they're up against. That's where the coaching war comes into effect here. Kuki and Packington are both big brain coaches, so whoever comes up with the better strategy will likely lead their team to victory. I lean a bit more towards the Mayhem in this game, but only because of the tanks really. I simply have more confidence in Fate and Gargoyle in a double shield meta, as I think they've been one of the best in the league with the Orisa Sigma combo. That leads me to believe Florida wins a hard-fought series in 4 maps. But don't be mistaken, if the Valiant find a way to overcome their weakness, then this seriously might be anybody's game. While Gangnam Jin is a bit better than Lastro, the support lines in general are pretty close in regards to relative skill level. And do I really even need to mention the DPS? That's the main attraction. Yaki and BQB versus Shax and KSP. That is going to be a bloodbath. 2 of the better Tracer players in the league and 2 of the best hit scans going head to head. I am super pumped to witness that play out. I personally think they kind of cancel each other out, but if one player plays above the rest, then that might be the difference maker that decides the outcome of this game. Transitioning over to the final game of a very busy week, the San Francisco Shock go up against the Washington Justice. After failing to take a map off the Valiant last week, I'm not super confident in the Justice. They showed flashes of life for sure, but nothing that would tell you they're anywhere near ready to play the Shock. It's a night and day difference essentially. There's not much of a need to explain myself when I revealed that I have the Shock winning 3-0. This game serves as a way for the Justice to better themselves. It's not winnable, so they have to look at the small things. Even coming across minor victories on every map could help build this team's confidence. If everybody can have at least one moment, that would be great. I'm especially hoping for this with Tuba, who showed signs of life against the Valiant. These guys are rebuilding, and it's important to accept that so it becomes easier to be happy about the small things. But that's pretty much everything I have to say about the Justice and the Shock game, so that wraps up this week's predictions. Who do you have winning this weekend? Leave a comment so we can keep the discussion going. And if you enjoyed the video, it would mean a lot to me if you could hit that like button and subscribe if you're new to my channel. Once you're done with that, consider following me on Twitter, joining my Discord server through the link in the description, and becoming a channel member to further support me. And as always, thanks so much for watching today's video, I really do appreciate it, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.